Welcome to Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. In this podcast, I chat to athletes, coaches, and industry professionals about their sporting journey and the lessons they've learnt along the way. Guests range from Olympians to the everyday lover of sport, but the message stays the same. There is so much more to sport than what meets the eye. Make sure you hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or follow on Spotify so you don't miss the release of each new episode. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. I'd love to hear from you. I can't believe it's almost a year since I started this podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to share the journeys and lessons that each one of our incredible guests have had through sport. I am beyond grateful to each one of you who tune in week after week. It's been amazing to connect with you over Instagram and see the community grow. To celebrate the lead up of the podcast turning 1, there's a special giveaway running this month, September 2021. We are giving away a limited edition Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart mug so that you can enjoy your cup of coffee or tea whilst you listen to the podcast. All you have to do is open up the Apple Podcast app, that's the purple one with the white logo, go to Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart, scroll on down to the ratings and review section and leave a review. Make sure you screenshot and send it to me via Instagram or Facebook so I can enter you into the draw. A review with just the stars will be worth 1 entry, and if you write a comment, you'll get 2 entries. Entries close at the end of the month, and the winner will be contacted by Sunday the 3rd of October. For those of you who are listening on Spotify or another podcast platform, don't worry, you haven't missed out. There's something coming for you next month. In this week's episode, we are joined by Josh Azzopardi, an Aussie track sprinter who actually came from a football background. Josh has represented Australia in both Oztag and in athletics at the Under-20 World Championships. In this episode, Josh opens up about what he loves about athletics and what the ups and downs of the sport have taught him. Coming from an individual sport, I really admire how Josh sees his competitors as more than just competition, but lifelong friends. That's enough from me. Let's hear from Josh. Can you tell us about your sport and how you got into it? I know you've played 2 sports at a high level. Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so I did little A's when I was coming through, my younger years. So I started in under 6s, little A's. And I was kind of doing it as like a recreational sport, just kind of a bit of fun and all that, playing around with mates at the track and all that. And I was playing AFL up until the age of about 13. And then from 13 to around 16, I was in rugby league. And I was still doing a bit of sprint training just to help with the speed on the field and all that stuff. So I kind of used sprinting as an alternative for my different sports. But then after, when I was about 16, I took the change and I went to Oztag because it was a bit less of contact. And, I didn't really want to get injured because I had sprinting there as well. And I was racing at the same time. So I was like, it's not really worth the risk. So I ended up playing Oztag for a bit there. And then in 2018, I ended up going to World Juniors and Under-20s, which I didn't really know what it was at the time. My coach sat me down about a year before the World Juniors even happened, and he explained to me like, if you put your head down, you can go to World Juniors. I was like, I don't even know what World Juniors is, but it sounds cool. So after that, it was kind of like a realization where I was like, if I actually put my head down, I'll be able to do this. So I was still playing Oztag at the time. And then in 2018, I got selected for World Juniors, and then in that same year, I got selected for the Under-20 World Cup in Oztag. Wow. So I did World Juniors before that. And then the Oztag was kind of at the end of the year. And I said to myself, I was like, all right, I'm going to play Oztag. If I get through it, then I'm just going to put it to the side and, focus on my sprinting, because that experience traveling overseas in the Australian team was one of the best experiences of my life. So, it was really good.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's interesting that you were playing, it was AFL football.
Yeah.
Because I know you're from Sydney, so we have different lingo for football, even within Australia.
Okay.
So you were playing AFL football, and then you were like, you know what? I want to protect my body, I guess, a little bit from the rough housing that comes with football. And you made a, transition over to Oztag. Can you tell us a little bit, I guess, about Oztag? Like, it's basically tag football. Is that right? Or is it more rugby?
Yeah. It's I don't even know how to explain it really. It's just, so you obviously got 2 tags on the side of your hips, and it's pretty much just the same as league. You get tagged once, and you just got to play the ball and all that stuff. But it was a lot more speed focused than more technical.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more technical and speed more than like rough, forward take to hit up. You can kind of use your speed and your momentum and all that stuff. So it was kind of suited me down to the ground a little bit, coming from that football background. So yeah, I was loving playing it, but I love sprinting more. So I had to choose one pretty much.
Yeah. So was that, experience in 2018 when you did both, basically you represented the country for both of those sports. Was that the moment that you were kind of like, yes, athletics is for me?
I think so, yeah, because athletics, it's a very individualized sport, and I kind of got more self-satisfaction out of, achieving my own goals rather than being in a team environment. Obviously I loved being in a team environment, but like, as I said, the self-satisfaction of, running a PB after doing all the hard work, you don't really have to rely on anyone else besides yourself in a way. So it sounds a bit selfish, but that's the way I kind of put it.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you say that. And I looked up a little bit about the events that you competed in for that under 20 world champs. And it was the 4x1 relay, and then like a couple of weeks out, you actually then qualified for your individual 100. So yes. How did you find, being able to do the most team event in athletics that you could, as well as the individual?
Yeah, so that was interesting because I originally only got selected in the 4x1 relay to go over to Finland and race in, and I was stoked with that. So I was prepared to go just for the relay, and then we had a hit out about 2 weeks before the actual world champ started, and we ran over in Finland, and everyone in the race, like all our relay boys, we all ran PBs, and that's where Jake Doran ran his 10:15, which is the Australian under 20 record, and we all ran PBs. So Athletics Australia, they actually contacted World Athletics, or IAAF at the time, and they said if they could put Jake and myself into the individual 100 a couple of weeks before it was even starting. So that was really fortunate for me because I ended up getting selected in, and that's kind of what the self-satisfaction came out of it. My hard work got me a PB, and then it got me into that event later than everyone else got selected. So, it was a really crazy time, and it was just a great experience.
What happened at that was it World Champs or World Cup?
World Champs.
World Champs.
World Under 20 Champs, yeah. So in the 100, I got knocked out in the heats, but it was top 3 that automatically went to the semi, and I missed out by 0.01.
Oh.
So I was over in Finland racing, and the guy that came third was a Finnish bloke.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of a bit, how you going? But it was such a great experience just to run in the Australian kit and, travel overseas. It was one of the most eye-opening experiences, as I said.
Yeah, and I think I did a little bit of Google
research.
Stalking. Yeah, so it was 26 out of like almost 50. So that's still a really amazing result.
Yeah, and considering I was only put in later as well, I was at the time I'm really hard on myself. So at the time I was really gutted that I didn't get the semi, but then I had to take a moment to step back and think, like, look where I am at the moment. I wasn't even supposed to be here 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I kind of just took a step back, relaxed a bit, and just took every inch of, everything in. So it was good.
Yeah. And how did the relay team go?
The relay it was a good, I mean, it's hard to talk about because we were going really well in the heat, and we were leading coming to we weren't leading, we were in second place coming to our 4th change. And then our 4th change, he took off really quick. Well, I don't know if he took off quick or we just didn't put the right team in the right order. Mm-hmm. It could have been a number of factors, but we didn't end up getting the baton in between the zone and the heat, so we ended up getting disqualified. But it was still an amazing experience. I got to run my leg. All the other boys got to run their legs except for last, but it was a learning curve for all of us, I think. So. Yeah. If you look at it positively, everyone learned something from that relay.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. Like, you guys were all competing on the world stage at,
Yeah.
that point, it might have all, even been all 4 of your first world stage meets. So
Yeah.
just even being there is an experience and a learning curve. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So with saying all that, like, is there any significant milestones along your journey? I know you've been sporting a few injuries somewhere along there. Can you tell us about some significant milestones?
Yeah, I mean, making that team was probably one of the biggest milestones because I was going into nationals that year with an injury, with a hammy injury,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of threw me around a little bit because it was my first major injury, and I had a bit of a hammy niggle, and they select off how you go at nationals as well. So coming into nationals, I hadn't touched the track for maybe 6 weeks. I was in the pool on the bike, and I just didn't know how to handle it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that was probably one of my lowest points, I guess, in my
Mm-hmm.
track career at the moment. And then straight into a high moment when I got selected. So it was a really weird time. But, you know, like it's just the way that you carry yourself through those times is what really makes an athlete, I reckon. So, I was really proud of myself after that when I got selected. So that was probably my highest milestone at the moment. But also recently, at the start of the year, running probably my first sub 21 in a 200 meters. That was a pretty big stepping stone for me and my coach. We were talking about it for a long time. I think it was maybe 2 seasons talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to actually happen, it was one of the highest moments.
Yeah, and that was at the Sydney Track Classic, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was my first one, Sydney Track Classic. Yeah.
Oh, so you did multiple.
Yeah, I've done three subs at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So it's not a fluke, like you did it consistently as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I was talking to a massage therapist after Sydney and she goes, "Oh, is this going to be a one-off or are you going to consistently run?" I was like, "I don't know. We'll see what happens." And then a week later I went again, and then another week later I went again. So I was like, this is great.
Yeah, well, there you go. It was consistent. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So
So,
what kind of made you transition from that 100 focus to the 200 focus? Is it more like kind of age and experience, or?
yeah, I'm not too sure. I've always liked the 100 more than the 200,
Mm-hmm.
but this season has kind of opened my eyes a bit more to the 200. I'm not too sure if it's me developing as a person or an athlete, but yeah, no, I'm definitely enjoying my 200s a bit more.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. You've got a bit more time to play with as well. It's like
Exactly right. I mean,
20 seconds.
if you stuff up in the first 10 meters, you can kind of bring it back. But in the 100, you got to be going from the start.
Yeah, yeah. And how does it feel like in terms of pressure? Like I was a swimmer and I was kind of a sprinter, but our shortest race is 50 meters and it goes for about the same as your 200, maybe a little bit longer. So how does it feel like having all of that, not pressure, but like all of your race in such a short time? Like, what's that feel like?
Yeah, it's probably why I love doing it so much because everything just happens so quick,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that adrenaline rush that really gets the blood pumping. So like coming out of the blocks and you're flying around the bend, and before you know it, you're already in the straight and you're coming home and you pretty much cross the finish line. It's just everything happens so quickly, and you got to run your race plan as quick as possible. You got to think quickly. You got to be on your toes about it. So that's probably why I love the sport so much. It's just so adrenaline rushing at one point.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like I couldn't imagine running like 100 meters in 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, it's pretty hectic.
It's pretty quick. And like in 10 seconds, how do you even have time to think of your race plan, let alone execute it? Like it must be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just take it every step. Like you kind of have your 3 phases in a way. It's kind of your dry phase and then your top speed phase and then your coming home stage. So you kind of just break it up into sections and then just try and incorporate it within that 10 seconds.
Yeah, tricky. Yeah, definitely. So in terms of like those milestones, I think you're number 1 in New South Wales. Was that right? In the 200? I know they said I watched the Sydney track replay and they're like 1-2 went 1-2. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, that's awesome. How does that feel, being able to like race in a state that I guess New South Wales has quite, I don't even know how to say it, quite well-equipped track runners. Like, how does
Athletes,
it feel? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good feeling. So I did, so I'm state champion for the second year in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, the Sydney Track Classic was after state. So I won Sydney Track Classic, and then Will Roberts came second, and he came second at state a couple of weeks before. So, yeah, it was a 1-2. And, yeah, no, there's such quality athletes in New South Wales, and to be, like, crowned as the number one, it's, like, one of the most special feelings, you know. As I said before, you know, the self-satisfaction of putting all your hard work in, and then you're crowned number one in New South Wales. It's one of the best feelings. So, yeah, no, it's good.
Certainly an achievement that I never experienced, but it sounds like, yeah, you do get a lot of fulfillment and learn a lot from that. So in saying that, there's a lot that sport has to offer that's, you know, maybe a little bit more than just being number one. What are the benefits that sports provided you as an individual that's like transferred over to other avenues of your life?
Yeah, so it's definitely transferred into what I want to do as a career. I want to go into like physio or something like that down the lines of sport, because sport's been a massive impact on my life. Even through track, I want to kind of stay in that field for as long as possible, just because I love the vibe of everything about it. Even like the benefits of track, like with the friendships that I've made through the sport, it's been ridiculous. And like growing up with people that I still race to this day, it's really good to see them develop as athletes, and obviously to see me as develop as an athlete. And you kind of do it together. Even though you're racing, you do it together.
Yeah.
So if you watch the Sydney Track, you see me hug second place after the race. Me and him have been racing for a long time, and we're really close mates, and that's something that's like irreplaceable in this sport.
Yeah, and I find that, like, I came from an individual sport as well, and I find that, yes, the team sport environment maybe is a little bit more obvious that those friendships and those bonds develop, but in individual sports, like, it's kind of not more genuine, but you're not forced to be friends with anyone. It just develops, and you respect each other in their own right, kind of thing. And
yeah, exactly right.
I think it's very special to be able to go, oh, no, that person's a friend for life. Like, I grew up competing with them, and not always against, but yeah, with them, and they're a friend for life.
Yeah, exactly right. And like, you share the same goals in a way, so you can relate on that level. But yeah, no, as you said, through an individual sport, it's good to have those friendships. That's not force. So yeah, no, it is good.
Yeah, and I guess it teaches you how to respect your competitors, like whether that's in the workplace or, you know, somewhere else. Like, you learn to go, well, you know what, they did the work and they deserve the recognition, rather than that yucky feeling that you might get otherwise. Yeah, it's definitely a good thing that individual sports can teach you.
Yeah, definitely. And even like traveling around the world, like, as I said before, taking the sport took me to a different side of the world. Sorry. And it's just an experience that you never forget. You know, you make friendships over there with different countries. Like, I still talk to people that are from Germany and different countries. It's just great.
Yeah, that brings me back. I used to train with someone, and I doubt that he listens. Sometimes there's a random Germany pop up in the podcast demographics, but if he does, a German exchange student, and he came down, and I still chat to him now, like, and it was 10 plus years ago. And so those friendships, like, they do really last.
Yeah, exactly right. It's really good.
Yeah. So in saying that, is there a lesson that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share?
Yeah, probably just to be patient with everything. You know, as an elite athlete in an individual sport, you demand so much of yourself all the time. And I went through a season where after the World Juniors, because I was jumping my times down a lot before, like the season before, I think I was running like 11 something, and then down to like a 10.8 and down to like a 10.5. And then I kind of plateaued for a season at like 10.6s. And I was asking myself, like, why am I not dropping again? Like, what is the go? And I wasn't used to holding a consistent time for a whole season, which kind of worked in my favor, because then the season after I was consistently dropping. And yeah, I wasn't patient at the time, and I was stressing so much about everything. And as I've developed, I've learned a lot just to be patient, and, you know, you'll reap the rewards in the end. So, and just don't take shortcuts, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like trust the process. Like, you're doing the right thing. You might not see the results straight away, but trust that you are putting in the work and putting in the effort.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly right.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. And it's a hard one when you're in it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was questioning everything as what I was doing. I was like, why am I not getting any better? I'm running fastest reps at training. Like, why is this not transferring over to the track? And yeah, as I said, I was stressing. I was like, damn, like I'm going backwards here. This is not good. But yeah, I hadn't run a PB that year, and then come the next 2 seasons, I ended up running PB. So yeah, exactly. You just got to be patient.
Yeah, it all worked out in the end.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So a lot of track and field people that I've interviewed lately have said that you guys call it little A's. I don't know.
Little A's, yeah.
Little A's, but I call it little A's. But yeah, little A's are, such a community-based sport or feel. Have you kind of been involved in little A's more recently? Like, have you been able to help kids up and coming?
Yeah, so my little A's club, which is Camden Athletics, I've been with them since I was in under sixes, and they've supported me ridiculously through my athletics career. So I thought I'd just give back to them and go help out, because they do athletics every Friday night down at my local field. So I go down there and help out, help time the hundreds or whatever they need me to do. Start at start gun, So it's just a little something that I want to give back, and it kind of brings back memories of when I was doing little A's and seeing all the little kids run around. It's really satisfying to watch, really.
Yeah, it almost means a bit more than, watching yourself or like competing yourself. You're just kind of like, oh, look at the pure joy on these 6-year-olds' faces.
Exactly right. And knowing that that's where you've come from, and you could be looking at future stars, really. So yeah, no, I try to go help them out as much as I can.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's so fulfilling. Like, I know that I've coached a lot of swimming, and I run a swim school when COVID's not interrupting.
Yeah.
And being able to, give back to a sport that you love so much and has given you so much is something that's quite fulfilling.
Yeah, 100%. And as I said, that club has supported me so much through my career, and the least I can do is, help them out.
Yeah. Now, I kind of asked that in a different way, but is there another project where you've used sport to develop the community?
I'm an ambassador for Inspire Tech, which is like they're on Instagram and they have apps and all that stuff, which helps the mental health of athletes through their sport. And it's a really important thing that they've got going, and it's a good initiative, because as an elite athlete, as I said, you start to think a lot when you're not getting those performances that you think you're able to get. And it starts to play a big part on athletes' mental health. So just trying to, tell them to take a step back, just relax. Everything happens for a reason. It's a really good initiative on what they're going. And a good example of it is Simone Biles from the Tokyo Olympics, how she had to pull out of a gymnastics routine, I think it was, because of mental health. So it just plays a massive role in elite athletes these days.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's now being talked about, and it makes me proud to be part of this generation that we're, part of the change, I guess, between not talking about it or it being seen as weak, and then instead of being like, no, like, good on you for putting your mental health first, like, rather than competition.
Yeah, exactly right. And at the end of the day, you're a person before you're an athlete. So you got to kind of look at how you're traveling mentally before putting anything before that, because everyone's been through it as an athlete. You think a lot about results, this, that. You just got to take a step back. Remember, you're a person. Pick up a hobby. Try and distance yourself sometimes from such a heavy load on yourself.
Yeah, focus on more than one thing. In saying that, like, do you have a hobby or a tip that you want to share?
I kind of just like relaxing with mates. I mean, it's pretty hard at the moment with COVID and all that, but we've been jumping on Zooms and, online games and all that stuff. I'm a bit of a gamer.
Yeah.
So I like to jump on PlayStation every now and then with the boys. So that kind of just takes my mind away from it. And, I'm studying as well at the moment. So that kind of pulls me away from it as well.
Yeah, it gives you that a little bit of an escape. I know it's sometimes hard to balance the study and the sport, I guess. But I think a lot of the people that I've spoken to have said that it really benefits them more so, because when they're, struggling with the study world, they can just kind of dip into the sport world for a little bit. And it's that having that balance.
Yeah, exactly right. And it kind of, they work in each other's favor in a way, because if you want to take a break from your sport, you can go study or you can go do something else. But if you want to have a break from your studying, you can go out to training and, take your mind away from different things, because having one thing on your mind all the time, not an ideal way to head.
No, yeah, it gets a bit obsessive. I know, I know growing up, it was swimming, and I really did. I probably burnt myself out because of that. But since maybe COVID really forced me into a few injuries in and out, but like it would have been COVID that I was like, okay, so can't do this anymore. Where's my identity? And I kind of found things that I liked outside of that. And
yeah.
I've said in another episode, it's like the 3 Ps. So I've got podcast, puppy, and painting, my 3 things.
Lovely. Yeah. I mean, as you said, COVID, COVID was kind of a blessing at the start. I mean, not at the moment, but it was kind of a blessing in a way that it kind of reset me in a way, because I was very, race next weekend, let's go, head down all the time. And then COVID kind of just cancelled or postponed everything. It was kind of like a reset for myself. So I reset everything. I was like, all right, let's start from the bottom again and let's work our way at the top. And that's probably one of the reasons why I had one of the best seasons, I think, just because, I was able to take a step back and learn a bit.
Yeah. And it's interesting to say that, because, when COVID first started, I think a lot of people were like, oh no, what's going to happen in terms of, athletes' performance. And I know sporty people would have been thinking about that, and some other people had other priorities. But even the Olympics have showed us how much it actually helped in terms of performance. Like nothing was really severely impacted.
Exactly right. And I know that some people may not have even qualified if the Olympics stayed last year. And I mean, some people could have been injured at the time when the Olympics were supposed to be, and they had the chance to run this year, and it could have worked the other way, where people are already last year and are injured this year. But it was kind of, I guess for myself, it was a bit of a little blessing. So I'll take it.
Yeah. And in saying that, this is a very loaded question, but where do you see the future of sport?
Well, you see the inclusions of different sports in the Olympics through like rock climbing and the BMXing and all that stuff. So I don't doubt that they'll keep adding sports into the Olympics. They keep modifying games and all that stuff, which is really good. I wouldn't be surprised if Oztag's in the Olympics soon. So that'd be cool to see. And then in like track and field, I think in Australia, it's a positive move going forward with the Olympics actually happening and the same kind of time zone as what we were, as everyone was able to watch, watch the track and field. And I had a lot of people messaging me like they watched Rowan Browning, they watched Peter Bowl, like they fell in love with track and field. And I was like, this is what you've been missing the whole time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully that kind of opens people's eyes and they're able to get out to the track and, come and watch some of the bigger events going around, because us track and field athletes, we do put a lot of hard work into this sport, and just hope to see everyone get out there.
And I think it's quite interesting because I know, and I don't know if it was always just because I was a swimmer, but I used to watch a lot of the swimming. Maybe it was because it was time zone friendly as well. And maybe it was also because Australia typically got a lot of medals. So it was maybe a bit more common for people to tune into that. But the track and field, I really watched a lot of it this Olympics. And there's some really amazing athletes that, maybe wouldn't have been shown if the time zone didn't allow, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
I think it really did put a spotlight. And if it attracts kids to do it now, then you know what, we might have more track and field medals come the Brisbane Olympics than swimming medals. So I think, it's only bright for track and field.
Yeah, exactly right. And as you said, the time zones aligned perfectly. And it was kind of a blessing that we got locked down at the same time as well, because everyone had to sit down and watch the TV. So, as you said, coming into the Brisbane Olympics, the kids that are, 10 to 15 at the moment, they're watching these people on the TV. Hopefully they're inspiring them to, you get out on the track and have a run or so.
Yeah. And even for people now, like to put their kids in that sport in future, like I think it proves that, I don't know, like it was Ash and Cedric, Like
Ash
that.
Maloney and Cedric,
Yeah. It was but it was
decathlon, 1500.
yeah, like watching that and going, okay, like there's some kind of teamwork going on there. Well, maybe it's not an individual sport, and parents that would typically put their kids in a team sport to learn those team skills might go, oh, let's not discount track and field. Look at this amazing demonstration of sportsmanship.
Exactly right. And I know Ash because I went to World Juniors with him in 2018. He's an incredible athlete, hands down. And Cedric and Ash, they actually trained together. So it was good to see, it was, as you said, it was good to see them, or see Cedric push Ash in that last event to help him get that bronze medal. And it's really eye-opening. But yeah, no, it was one of the best moments of the Olympics, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was up there with one of my highlights. I know I got goosebumps watching it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But yeah, there was amazing coverage. I think it was probably the best coverage that I've seen, especially with all of the apps and the technology. You know, we were able to watch whatever sport you wanted. And, you know, you might even have like 3 or 4 screens going at once so you could watch everything.
Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, as you said, the broadcasting for it was amazing. And moving forward, I think, as I said, they've opened eyes to a lot of Australians. So hopefully that they start to broadcast a bit more of the Australian circuit when it's going around, you know, like nationals and all that, and some of the track classics, because they're fairly big. So hopefully in the future. Yeah,
definitely. It would be cool to see like the track classics on the TV rather than having to watch it on YouTube. That would be good.
Yeah. The track classics are really good, actually. Like they have a lot of hype around them. So like winning Sydney track and winning Queensland track, it was really, really such a amazing feeling. And like they were my first wins at track classics, and yeah, it was just one of the craziest feelings ever.
Oh, I think it's only up for you now, Josh. Like I see amazing things in your future. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with us.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It was good to have a talk.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. This is a completely independent podcast that has been created to share the journey and lessons of top-level sporting professionals, but also your everyday lover of sport. If you liked this podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a review and share it with someone who you think would also enjoy it. Until next time.